Hey, we got Andy Staples joining the show. Covers college football for The Athletic because he's going to help us make sense of the news this week that the SEC might just destroy college football. Is that what's happening here, Andy? If the Big 12 is no more with Texas and Oklahoma jumping ship?
I mean, does that destroy college football? I think they still continue playing it. It'd still appear on my television. So I don't know if it destroys it. It would definitely be a little bit top heavier because I always laugh because everybody says, well, they're going to go to 4 16-team super conferences. Listen, if the SEC adds Texas and Oklahoma, there's one super conference and one kind of super conference with the Big Ten. Nobody else has any claim on the word super after that.
I do love the traditional rivalries that we get in college football, regardless if they have national championship implications. Do you think this move from Texas and Oklahoma that will not destroy college football, but destroy it as we know it and will create something new from the rubble and the ash that comes from this?
So, like, destroying traditional rivalries like Texas and Texas A&M, who haven't played since 2012, who now would play again?
No, you're going to create new ones. So I was going to ask you, with the sort of college football as we know it being something of the past, what do you think the benefits are from a possible, rejuggering around of everything? And I also don't know what juggering is. That's not a word.
Yeah. There's a lot of words that are getting sort of invented here because we've not seen something like this in a while. I mean, this happened 10 years ago. This is very similar to the way it happened 10 years ago, but this feels more extreme because back then there weren't mega brands moving. The biggest brands that moved were Nebraska and Texas A&M. This is Texas and Oklahoma saying, we're not good with where we are. We would like to go over here because we think that's where the better future is. But it will be different and it will be more top-heavy. The thing you would be concerned about if you're running college football, which, by the way, no one actually runs college football. It's sort of a bunch of fiefdoms. It made all this money by going from being a regional sport to being a national sport. You add Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC suddenly has its own gravitational pull. It's its own planet, basically. And really the Big Ten is the only other league that is somewhat competitive there. And so you've now concentrated most of the interest in the sport in the South and the Midwest, which, let's be honest, those are the places where people were most interested in the sport before. But it was better as a national proposition. It was probably more lucrative as a national proposition. The money's still going up, but the question is there a peak at some point? Because now, if you're on the West Coast, if you're in the Northeast, if you're in the upper Midwest, are you not as interested in the sport? Because it doesn't feel like there's anything for you. That's a 15, 20 years from now question. But if you're the SEC right now and when this happened and Texas and Oklahoma knocked on your door and said, mind if we come in? You have to say yes. You have to take them. I mean, you'd be crazy not to.
Andy Staples from The Athletic joins the show, college football senior writer and host of the Andy Staples Show podcast. What does this mean for traditional powers who haven't really seen themselves as a part of the national championship conversation in recent years? Schools like Miami, USC, Michigan, Tennessee.
Rich Eisen here. I feel like you're subliminally you're subtweeting Rich here.
Just throwing in a little shot at USC, or just trying to get some Michigan talk in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, what does it mean for them? It means basically the same. You need to be better than Alabama and Oklahoma and Ohio State and Clemson if you'd like to win the national title. I mean, that doesn't really change anything for them. The teams that are competing for the national title, it doesn't really matter what conference they're in. That's who they are, and you need to be better than them. So I think that's what it means for them. Now, USC is a little bit different animal. Like, Miami's in the ACC. The ACC is pretty stable. You've got Clemson in there. You've got North Carolina, another big brand, not a huge football power, but so that league at the moment seems pretty stable. But like USC was not happy with the way the Pac-12 was being run. They have changed commissioners in the Pac-12, so maybe things have calmed down. But if you're USC, you're looking at this and suddenly feeling very isolated. If you're Oregon or Washington, which is similar to USC, where good football programs on the West Coast with very passionate fan bases more passionate than most of the other ones on the West Coast, you're looking at that and going, we feel very alone out here. So what do we do? And I don't know what the answer to that question is.
Ben Lyons filling in for Rich on the Rich Eisen Show, joined by Andy Staples from The Athletic. You mentioned that there was a shakeup about 10 years ago, but 10 years ago in college football, we didn't have name, image, and likeness like we do today. We also didn't have the transfer portal like we do today. How will those be impacted by this move and change in the balance of power?
Well, you probably will have leagues, teams that are in the SEC and in the Big Ten, which have the biggest reach and will continue to have the biggest reach. They will have an advantage. They will have an advantage in terms of, look, we have these big, passionate fan bases. They're going to be able to help you out. These businesses are going to want you promoting their products because look at all the people you can reach. Look how many fans we have. That's real. But I don't know that that's really any different than 10 or 11 years ago. What's different is the players now have some basic economic rights and can take advantage of that.
Do you think the changing of the current system will lead to a deeper playoff structure? Are we going to have a 16-team playoff structure in the future, you think, for college football?
We're going to have a 12-team playoff. They've already said it. They're working their way through the logistics of it now, but it's going to be 12 teams, and the top 4 ranked conference champs will get byes. The number 5 through 9 seeds will host home games in the first round. And the reason they did it this way is because the thought was, okay, you can go to 8, but there were a lot of leagues that said, well, we don't want it to be just the best 8 or whoever, some group of people thinks is the best 8. We want conference championships to matter. And the SEC looked at that and said, okay, fine. If you want to have automatic bids for conference champion, you can't make it where there are fewer at-large bids than there are now, because right now there's a 14 playoff and there are 4 at-large bids, basically. And so the compromise was you go bigger to 12, and so there are now 6 at-larges and 6 spots guaranteed for conference champs. And that helps the Pac-12, which couldn't get into the playoff. That helps the Big 12, which struggled to get into the playoff. It helps those group of 5 leagues that never really had a real chance that at least one of them is going to get in now. But it really helps the SEC and the Big Ten, where you could have 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 with this new SEC of your teams getting in.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.